Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome inside the Guilty as Charged podcast. My name is Steven, and I am your host. Back from the coast, back in rainy Clovis, California today. So I was a little surprised by that, but love the rain. So here we are. Joining me, as always, are my guys Tyler and Alex. Alex, we'll start with you, man. How you doing tonight?
Doing good. Ready to talk about interior offensive lineman and Troy Reader.
Yeah, this is a great Alex episode. An underwhelming, scrappy white linebacker and interior offensive lineman. So I got a jam-packed show for sure tonight. Tyler's here as well, man. Tyler, how you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for everyone who watched the video I did with Kyle on those compensatory picks, not composite rankings. That was awesome. I really appreciate all your feedback. It was great. I had fun watching this interior offensive line class. It's the most players I've graded outside of, I think, wide receivers. So it was fun watching some of these guys.
Yeah, I think you lump centers and guards in one position group, and suddenly there's 25 players worth grading. So it's a fun group, and we'll dive into that one as well. And if you missed Tyler's video with Kyle breaking down compensatory picks, I think it's super interesting. We can talk about kind of projecting the compensatory picks that the Chargers could earn next year. At some point, yeah, not very many, but we can cover that for sure. That being said, we do have a bit of news to get to, obviously, and that is the Chargers' decision to sign Troy Reader. He is obviously the former Rams linebacker that started a few games for Brandon Staley, became really a full-time starter for the Rams this past year while the Rams were dealing with a bunch of injuries. So, Tyler, that being said, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts here as we look forward to Troy Reader, replacing Kaiser White?
Yeah, I mean, as I posted, and Alex has a video coming out tomorrow, and I did watch it. It all comes down to the what, when, where, why, how of all of this, because I don't know what do we expect here. Is this a, Banks coming in and taking over for Broughton situation where we're just going to kind of go with the guy that we know, or is he a depth option? Well, I do think he is going to be a depth option. I think the Chargers taking a guy with a pretty solid RAS score, kind of giving their whole linebacker room that sort of great RAS score is fine. I didn't watch Troy Reader, but I watched Micah Kaiser back on. I was just watching some stuff last year when Staley was hired, and he was used quite a bit to try to free up other players. And I think that Staley showed in the preseason and sometimes throughout the season, but guys were in and out of the lineup due to injuries, that he wants to use these guys to attack the line of scrimmage, to cause, chaos, get after the quarterback. And I think that's something that Reader does and has done and did do for the Rams and did with Brandon Staley. So that's great. My only concern is, does this mean they're keeping 5 linebackers again? And if so, I'm not for that, because I believe for the most part, they kept 4 edge rushers last season, only 5 interior defensive linemen, only 5 wide receivers, and 5 linebackers in a system where you don't need more than 2 linebackers on the field, really, or off-ball linebackers, that is. And so I really hope this doesn't mean they're keeping 5, but then who are you not keeping? So, I think he looks like he played, both Mike and Will. They do need something right now. I think Amen is the starting Mike. And so it's good to have some depth there, but I don't know if I want 5 linebackers on this roster.
Yeah, I think my question is just about role entirely, because it's good to have scheme familiarity, and he knows Brandon Staley's defense, and so that is the good part of the signing. Bad part of the signing is he wasn't very good this year. And so that is what it comes down to. Look, you're giving him a 1-year, practically speaking, minimum deal. So it's about how many snaps he's going to play for me. If you're telling me he's going to be a guy that's going to play 300, 400 snaps, I'm fine with it. I guess if he's going to be a guy that's where he was with the Rams this year, which is pushing 600, 700, 800, that gets into murkier territory. And of course, that's all affected by injuries and the health of the unit as a whole. But pass coverage, not very good. And Kyle Shanahan can attest to that. The NFC Championship game when they got Reader leaning. And I think the one thing he is good at is pass rush. I mean, that is pretty impressive from him, just the functional strength he has when he's going up against an offensive lineman, particularly left tackles and right tackles. I actually think he's kind of like a little bit Nick Vigili in that regard, where he can just kind of, make do with the offensive line and, do what he does best in terms of being a consistent pass rusher. While all of his other grades went down last year, that this was the one that kept stable as a pass rusher. So he's good at what he's good at. But yeah, no, it's just about what the role is for him. And I think the question mark is really the other guys more so than Reader, because I think Reader will have his set amount of snaps. But it's like, okay, do they view Tranquil as more of a special teams player, or do they view him as linebacker too? We don't really know the answer to that question. Do they really believe in the Amen hype? I don't know, right? All of their actions kind of going forward in training camp will let us know how they feel about this group. But if Troy Reader is just here to be depth, I'm fine with it. If he's not, this linebacker room could get ugly pretty fast.
Yeah, Troy Reader, I think, was one of the worst linebackers in terms of starting linebackers. He was one of the worst in the league last year. So I think if he's depth, that's fine, whatever. I just kind of question the process here, like we have consistently throughout in terms of the linebacker group. And I think, like, I know full well, obviously, that Brandon Staley does not value linebackers all that well. Obviously, this is just more evidence of that. And when you probably could have ended up paying Kaiser White like $500,000 more to be on this team and be a starter instead of signing Troy Reader. So it's confusing, and he certainly could just be, competition and veteran depth and, insurance policies. But like, I just am frustrated with this linebacker process in general, because if the goal is to upgrade the room and that's why you're not signing Kaiser White back, then I get that. If your goal is to provide more depth because you're worried about Amen Ogbongbemiga potentially not being worth it, Kenneth Murray's emergence, then why would you not just bring Kaiser White back? Like, it's just is frustrating to me when Kaiser could have solved so many of the perceived issues among this group. And now Kaiser White's gone. Kenneth Murray has shoulder surgery. Or ankle surgery, excuse me. We don't know how long that's going to be. So we're just going to go rush and sign Troy Reader. Like, that's really what it feels like to me. That this was just a panic insurance policy signing, with, uncertainty around the draft and things like that. So I'm just frustrated by the process. And like, am I like going to be, ranting about firing Tom Telesco because he signed Troy Reader? Like, no, obviously not. But it's just like, in terms of being nitpicking, like, this is what that is, man. Like, I'm being a little too critical of this, and I get that, but it's just frustrating, man. When Kaiser White signed for $500,000 more, it's just annoying.
Yeah, I'm just going to assume they thought White would have signed for more. I guess
we all thought that.
Yeah,
So
certainly. And I'm sure he's going to get up to 5 million, which is, I'm sure, more than what Reader is going to get. To me, you let Kaiser White go. Not that I like this, because you want your other guys to develop and start. And if White is there, the other guys aren't developing and starting. I hate it, but whatever. That's their region thing, not mine. You bring on Reader, and he's not starting. That's what I'm going to guess. And so there's no conflict there. I will say it is concerning if we're just talking about linebacker rooms and the defense and how people feel overall. If I'm nitpicking as well, it's concerning to watch guys bring in their former guys, and not to say that no one's ever done that, but it feels a bit like a pattern at this point, sometimes very unjustified, or bringing on guys that aren't good, and then that's, okay, we're just going to roll with that the rest of the season. I understand bringing on, Harris or whatever, but that was it. Or the other, Marshall or those guys. But you bring on Banks when Broughton deserved it. Now you bring on Reader. I hope it pans out, because I feel like you can lose some guys because you're just bringing in your own guys. Maybe that's not the case. Maybe that everyone's cool with it and everybody totally gets it. To me, I think, and obviously, conversations, I hope they don't lose the locker room because of bringing in some guys that that maybe didn't deserve it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair point. I don't think they're going to lose the locker room so much, but lose confidence in, the ability to make decisions in certain areas of the team. I think that's possible. And I don't know. I just go back to this linebacker room, but we've been talking about it, and it's like, Kenneth Murray better pan out. Otherwise, this unit is garbage. Like, that's just kind of where we're at with it. And I know Brandon Staley doesn't value linebackers. We keep saying that, but it's like, there's going to come a time.
You still need good players there.
Right. You still need good players there, right? And I mean, there's going to be a time where, like, if Kenneth Murray is not good, or, he gets injured and you're having to play Troy Reader 50 snaps a game, Like that's the point where I think this does get really concerning, especially if you're playing a team like the Chiefs. You're playing teams like the Raiders, teams like the Broncos, teams that are projected to be really good this year and have smart coaches and can just take advantage of those matchups. And they say, hey, let's look at 51 over there, right? Like, and take advantage of him when Derwin James and all these other guys are on the field. So I think if you have one crucial weakness in that area, which is just the linebacker core minus Troy Reader in general. But now you're kind of bringing Reader on as depth, potentially another liability. I think it puts this team in a real conflicting position heading into the draft. And they're really banking on Murray and Tranquil, I guess, at this point, panning out.
Yeah, and I guess my overall thinking here is just like where's the upside? Because like, so if your plan ideally, right, is Kenneth Murray, Eamon Ogbongbemiga both hit, those are your starters. Drew Tranquil's a really good backup. Great. I can get behind that kind of plan. But then it's like, okay, if one of those two doesn't become a reliable starter, then we're just gonna start Troy Reader. Why? What did you draft Nick Niemann for? Why is Drew Tranquil there? Why would you not, head into the draft with and you can get, Brandon Smith from Penn State or Chance Campbell from Ole Miss, like one of these cheaper, high upside linebackers that you can get for 4 years instead of a 1-year deal with Troy Reader. So if you're just signing him because he's a camp body, whatever, I get it. But this feels more of like Troy Reader is kind of that gap in between starter and depth option. So I don't know, man. Like at some point you got to play these young guys, Eamon Ogbongbemiga and Nick Niemann, and I would much rather see them get that chance or a rookie who they draft than Troy Reader. So again, there's a lot of pent up frustration from me, based off of the Kaiser White situation. And I'm sure a lot of people feel that same way. And I'm sure Troy Reader is not being signed to be a starter. You always follow what the money says. And granted, we don't know what the money says, but it's going to be a 1-year veteran minimum deal kind of thing, I assume.
We hope.
We hope. But it's like, what's the point here, I guess, is really my biggest thing is like, if injury happens, you're going to start Troy Reader instead of Nick Niemann, who you drafted and invested in, who also knows the system, who's been in it for a year. Like, I just don't get it. I'm just frustrated by it.
I mean, I guess we don't know they're going to start short. Now, I do agree that they would over Nick Niemann, but we don't know that they're not going to start Nick Niemann if Reader goes down. But yes, I think we'll have to wait and see on this one. We'll see what happens. If he's cut, he's one of the first cuts. Hey, it is what it is, and this was just all for nothing. But this linebacker room has some of the most controversy from last season, so we'll see how it carries over into this year.
Alex, you're on mute.
Oh, I was just saying I don't feel like he's getting cut. I think he's going to be one of the 4, 5 linebackers, probably 4. I don't know. Depends on how high they really are on Eamon Ogbongbemiga at this point. But yeah, no, I think he's making the team regardless. How many snaps he plays is really dictated, I think, by injury as well as what the other guys are showing in camp. But yeah, no, I don't think there's any chance he's cut. I think he's 100% unless he gets injured on the opening day roster.
Yeah, I think until we know about Kenneth Murray's injury and his recovery time, I don't know if I would full on agree with that being 100%. But I do think that is obviously tracking towards him making the roster. And again, this is Staley's guys. Like, and I understand, like, there is some legitimate reasoning to picking up players who are familiar with your scheme. I mean, we all saw what that did for the Raiders and Gus Bradley last season. So I get some of it to an extent. Ideally, when you bring in your own guys, they're good players. They're not Troy Reader, Eric Banks, Trey Marshall kind of players. So like if this were him signing Micah Kaiser or Alexander Johnson from the Broncos, I would 100% get that. I would be on board with that because they're good players who are also his guys. But Troy Reader's not a good player, man. Like, I'm sorry, he's just not. Like, I think he's a fine fifth option, whatever. But again, like, what's the point? Where's the upside here?
In theory, you would like scheme familiarity, but you would also like your players to be good at football.
Yeah.
Now that's the second one. That one's a little bit harder to find. If he's linebacker 5, it doesn't matter as much. If he's linebacker 2, it does. But yeah, I did see someone put positives of the signing, scheme fit, negatives of the signing, everything else. So that is a little bit how I feel about it at this point. But like Tyler said, I think I'm willing to let it play out and just kind of go forward. But yeah, it's a little bit of a tough pill to swallow, especially if he ends up getting around the same money Kaiser got. I hope it's not 3.01 million guaranteed just for the sake of it, but we'll see.
God. Yeah, and I like I don't want to keep piling on this guy. Like, at some point I will move on.
You don't need to pile on
today.
him. The 49ers and Bengals already piled on him.
I just think, like, is he a depth signing? Sure. What is Nick Niemann? What is Eamon Ogbongbemiga? Like, I just don't see where all of that fits in. To me, it just gives me more questions than answers, and that's ideally not what you want in terms of signing a free agent.
Troy Reader, if you'd like to come on the show after we've called you not a good football player, you're welcome anytime.
Yeah, he's operating the Phantom Zone with like Gabe Neighbors and some other guys. That just
and Larry Roundtree.
Not gonna happen. Yeah, Larry Roundtree. Well, he's already on the show.
Yeah, hopefully the GAC bump translates to Larry Roundtree being good next year, or at least being worth a roster spot. All right, so we'll move on here. This is a part that I am actually excited about. This is going to be a fun little episode, at least for me. Obviously, everybody knows that I love talking about offensive linemen, and I will say that I didn't grade as many of the centers this year. Obviously, the Chargers don't really need one, so I didn't grade Cam Jurgens. I didn't grade Luke Fortnor from Kentucky. I know Zach Whitaker, our guy, is going to be a little bit upset about that one. Definitely did not grade the BYU center. Not watching that at all under any circumstances, like I said last time. But yeah, let's jump into it. So there are 10 prospects worth getting into, so I'm excited to see how this one goes, unlike the tight end group. And I'll kick us off. So
1 second, chat. Give me the percentage that Steven has a Utah football player in his top 10.
Ooh.
I mean, I did 95%. I know there's a way to do polls in here. I think we should figure out how to do that and have some fun with it. But 100%.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty likely.
Hey man, I always try and be objective. We all know this. So if I'm putting one in, we know that it's legitimate. So
okay.
Nice, John Well. Nice. All right. So I'm gonna get us started here. Someone said with Jello. That's hilarious. I got so many DMs last weekend about the crazy food situations from Utah. So shout out to all of you for staying tuned to that, listening to me talk about Utah's weird culture with food. Really appreciate that. All right. That being said, I'm going to kick us off here. So number 10 for me, I have Cade Mays from Tennessee. At number 9, I have Lecidus. I don't know how to say it. Lecidus Smith. I'm going with that. Virginia Tech, and then I have Gene DeLance from Florida. And then yes, I have a Utah player. I have Nick Ford at number 7, my guy. I do think he is worth being in top 10. But then again, I did not grade Cam Jurgens. I did not grade Luke Fortner. I know for sure that Cam Jurgens would probably be ahead of Nick Ford. So you can kind of bump everybody on this list down a spot. But, I'll talk about Nick Ford here for a second because obviously he is my guy. I have him at number 7. I do think that he is kind of a victim of the process. He did not get an invite to the Senior Bowl. He was apparently reportedly offered one or promised one and then didn't get one. So the Shrine Bowl didn't take him either. So I do think that kind of hurt his draft stock a little bit, but he's started games at all 5 positions along the offensive line. So he's got that versatility that teams really like with their late round players. He is 7th in our composite rankings for what it's worth. Over 1,000 of his snaps at Utah were at center. I don't think that's really his best position personally. I think that's most likely guard. He's kind of got that typical size and athleticism of a guard. Snapping was kind of an issue for him at Utah, so That's really the thing that I feel like is also kind of hurting him. But he plays it with a really a nice, nasty streak. He plays consistently throughout the whistle, consistently executes cutoff blocks, reaches, and combos at a high level. I always enjoyed watching him, get to the second level and pulling out on the perimeter. He's got really strong, powerful hands. So those are kind of the positives. Like I mentioned, his versatility. He does get struggle with some high pad level at time. And again, I did mention the snapping issues. But overall, I think he's worth a dart throw as a day 3 candidate. He has that versatility. He has that athleticism. So, yes, it's probably a homer pick. And yes, there are probably prospects that I did not grade that are probably better than him. I didn't get to Marquise Hayes from Oklahoma either. So I will say that before Tyler gets to him. There's no film on him on caddies, man. There's no film. So I wanted to. Huh?
The other one.
Oh. Which one?
The other one we have access to.
Okay, you're right. I'm sorry. I didn't get to check it. I did not grade Ed Ingram either for character reasons. I know he is off the Chargers board, for example. So, again, this is a little bit homerism. A little bit I didn't get to grade everybody that's probably better than like Cam Jurgens specifically. But I do think overall that Nick Ford would be a top 10 interior offensive lineman for me.
Yeah, nice. Nick Ford was great. I don't have him in my top 10. I did grade a lot of guys.
Yeah,
but I do really like him
this time for sure.
Yeah, and I think that we're on the same page of him being a good day 3 option, especially because did I watch him as? I think I only watched him as a center. I don't believe I watched him as a guard at all. But I'm glad he has that versatility. A lot of power between him. Not like the most flashy athletic guy, but just a guy that gets the job done. So I like him for sure.
Yeah, definitely not an elite athlete by any means, but again, and when you're watching these day 3 guys, you're looking for versatility, looking for some competitive toughness, all these things. So I think there's a lot to like. And like I said, he's probably closer to like 9 or 10 for me, but
not bad. Who
wants to go next?
I don't know.
Up to you.
I'll go. Why not? At number 10, a guy that I'm banking on because of athletic traits more than anything, Cam Jurgens, the center from Nebraska. At number 9, I have Luke Fortner from Kentucky. At 8, I have Jamari Salyer from Georgia. If that's how you say his name. Sorry. And then number 7, I have Dylan Parham from Memphis. I think I don't know if they're all Parham or not, but that's who I got. Cam Jurgens is so he made the Bootleg Football Podcast all ceiling team. He's a guy that has, just the RAS score. He's elite 97th percentile everywhere else except for size. This is a guy that is new to the position. He was recruited as a tight end. So he's just, I don't want to say he's just learning how to play, but he certainly didn't play it in high school by any means. Although I'm sure there's some that he at least blocked as a tight end, I'm sure. This is a guy who's a four-time state champion discus thrower, 3-time state champion shot put guy. He's an explosive monster. He's a guy that some of the more impressive blocks you'll see on film. He's got guys 20 yards down the field. He's just a forceful, powerful guy because of some demeanor, the athletic combination, all that. Here's where it's going to turn off some other people. Penalty machine for sure. This is an unnecessary roughness kind of penalty machine. This isn't like a false start sort of thing. Apparently, he's also had 2 season-ending injuries in his career. One as a senior in high school, one as a freshman in college. So that's not great. And he just looks like a tight end. If you look at him and you watch him, he almost is built like a thick tight end. Like if Charlie Kolar from Iowa State went and played center, kind of looks like that. He's not the biggest, obviously he's an okay size in his RAS score. He's not the biggest dude. So you got to work with the fact that he's got 2 season-ending injuries under his belt, a very much so penalty machine, and certainly not the biggest guy, but there's so much athletic upside there. Again, a 97th percentile tester sort of guy. You put him at center, you give him the tools, you work with it, you get him going along, have more years under his belt developing as a center. He could be really good.
Yeah, everything that I've seen on Twitter from Cam Jurgens and his, athletic testing would lend itself towards being, a high-end prospect. I think I've seen him as pretty high in terms of like, the top 5 interior offensive linemen. Again, I just didn't have time to watch everybody. I wanted to focus more on the guards in this class. as opposed to the centers once you get past the top 2 or 3. So, I kind of watched Cam Jurgens in passing. I will like him. Once I get to grading him, I will say that he will be in my top 10 at some point. 10 feels a little low because of his athletic profile, but I totally understand the concerns, especially the penalties. Kevin Kernick did point out he is Trevor Penning at center. Like they're like the same kind of person mentality, but he's a lot of fun.
Yeah. All right. So I'll go through my 10 through 7. At number 10, I have Alec Lindstrom. At number 9, I have Spencer Burford. At number 8, I have Cole Strange. And at number 7, I have Luke Gedeke. So I talked a little bit about Luke Gedeke when we did our tackles episode, and I had him like outside my top 10. But he also can play guard. And to be honest, he's who everyone thinks Bernard Raymond is, because he's a tight end, that transition, that can play tackle or guard and do that whole thing. And I think he's actually good, unlike Bernard Raymond. So I just think he has that, he's not going to have the length to be able to play tackle in the NFL, which is why I think he'll ultimately shift to the interior offensive line. But every time he plays, he's just very easily able to get to the second level, shows a certain kind of fierceness, but also that athletic bounciness that you kind of see in like a tight end in terms of his lateral mobility as well. So, I do think there is something to him as like a high ceiling prospect, right? Just because he does, hasn't played, interior offensive line for very long. So, you're taking him probably in the 3rd or 4th round, just hoping he kind of like develops further. But he was already really solid, and the analytics really like him, along with his teammate Bernard Raymond, which I don't support the analytics in that case. They both had over 90 PFF grades, is what I'm saying. But I don't believe it for Bernard Raymond. I do believe it for Luke Gedeke. So no, I think he probably would fill in probably somewhere like left guard, I think, in the league if you're looking at a team to take him. But I think he just blows defenders backwards, just as a guy that immediately at least makes your run game a little bit better. I think you probably are drafting him with the intention of him not starting immediately, but I do really like his upside as a prospect.
Yeah, so I watched him. He just was outside of my top 10 at 11. It was between him and Jurgens. You see, so he was a tight end convert, only spent 2 years as a right tackle. I believe he had an injury one of his other years. So I think 2019 and 2021 was only 2 years. This is a guy who flashes quite a bit. And I understand why Brendan Thorne has him in his top 10. There are things that you see, whether it's grip strength, the anchor, variation in the hands, getting out in space, blocking, small sample size. But when he went out in space, there were flashes of like, wow, that's really fantastic. He's a guy who half of his plays seem like they're knockdowns or pancakes. Those are wonderful. The reason he's outside of my top 10 is because, holy crap, the losses were like bad. And I mean, there were some that were very concerning against LSU. Some of it's, speed to the outside. Some of it's guys working spin moves off of him. He's got really short arms, which he'll be a great guard. Like, I do think him being at 11 for me is almost kind of a disservice to what I think he could be as a guard. But I still have to take into consideration what happened along the edge or at tackle. And guys were just getting their hands into his chest and working the leverage quite a bit. Spin moves off of him. So, but again, these are all criticisms I have for him watching him at tackle. And I think that some of those things will be taken care of when he goes to guard. So I think there's a lot of upside with him for sure. I understand why you like him. And yeah, so he's a good player for sure. Or a good prospect.
And also I would just say in comparison to Bernard Raymond, he's 23 as opposed to 45. So if you're looking for development, that's another thing.
So I was driving back from the coast this morning, and I was listening to the Stock Exchange podcast with Trevor Sikkema and Connor Rogers, and they were doing no trades mock draft today. And the board fell in such a way that you hear them talking about like what the Chargers are going to do at 17, and they're like, Trevor Penning was the pick before, Jordan Davis was like before that, Jameson Williams was like 10 to the Jets. So all these players like that are typically mocked to the Chargers were all gone, all of them. And they mentioned Trent McDuffie, they mentioned Zion Johnson, and then they chose Bernard Raymond, man, at 17. I was like, what are we doing here?
I'm going to be doing the live stream And if they take Bernard Raymond at 17, I will leave the live stream. Just leave.
I think I like Raymond. It's been a while since I've watched Raymond. I think I like him more, but the age is certainly concerning, of course.
Yeah.
I like Raymond more than Penning right now, but it's just the age and the lack of, Penning's at least an elite athlete, and he's not going to be 25 as a rookie. So it is a really concerning debate at that point. And, we'll get to Zion in a little bit and things like that. But the problem is that they haven't met with Raymond, according to Arjun. Have they met with anyone else that's in the top first round? No, right?
Ojabo. Of the tackles?
Yeah. Well, I guess they did meet with everybody at the combine, but
I'm sure Penning has met with the Chargers.
Yeah. I'm sure he has to. All right. So we'll continue on here to the next of my list. I will say I really like Gene DeLance. Chargers have met with him. I think he is a fantastic dart throw option. Didn't really get to talk about him much, but I do really like him. All right, number 6 for me. I actually have Tyler Smith from Tulsa here. I am listing him as a guard. I went back and revisited him because there were more games available to me. And so I am changing him to guard. And then at number 5, I have Jamari Salyer from Georgia, the former left tackle who is a guard 100%. And then at number 4, I have Cole Strange from Chattanooga. So I'll talk about Salyer first. I really like him more than I thought I would have when I, look at his kind of tackle tape. But, in terms of him being a guard convert, he just really has the stereotypical guard traits. And, he is a little bit undersized from a tackle perspective. He was actually the number 1 ranked guard in the whole country coming out of high school. So he does have that former guard center background. That's where he spent most of his times in his first 2 years at Georgia. And then I feel like it was just kind of get the best 5 players out there for them. And so they stuck him at left tackle. Justin Schaefer, who I have much lower on my list at left guard. And so it just never really felt like he truly fit in as a left tackle. He does have, when you're looking at tackles who are converting to guard in the next level, you're ideally looking for someone who doesn't have necessarily a great range, kind of struggles a little bit with those second level blocks, that is not super obviously lengthy is kind of like the big one that teams really look for. We hear about the 33-inch arms threshold that teams really like from a tackle perspective. But I will say, Salyer didn't really test well, but he plays well, man. Like he is explosive on tape. He jumps out of his stance at a consistent level. He's very, very violent. And I think he does have the kind of grip strength, the kind of tenacity that you like from your guards. He has that tone setter ability that, Tyler's going to talk about with Marquise Hayes. And again, I'm really bummed that I didn't get to watch him. But Salyer is kind of that same player. And so I do really like him. He, again, not the best athlete. So I understand certain people will not have him as high as I do at 5. But I just really like the way that he plays. I love his explosiveness. I love just his overall technique. There wasn't a single bad play that I watched where you're watching him and Schaefer next to each other. Schaefer is just kind of a mess. And Salyer is a really good technician, has all of the power and pop that you're looking for from a guard. And so, yeah, he doesn't have elite athletic traits, but he's not Deontay Brown either. So I think he is a good athlete, and he does show explosive traits on film.
Yeah, he's great. I honestly, like I told you an hour or so ago or 2 hours ago, if he were 6'5", 6'6", I think he'd just kind of be a tackle, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
I think he really, really good there. For some of these guards, and if they make the top 10, I'm looking for some sort of independent hand usage. This guy is just I think he's just gonna be very valuable. Apparently, he played all 5 positions, which is great. He's a thick dude. He's got an anchor.
He is,
There are moments where I just think he's lunging way too much. But when he plays refined and smart, when he brings his hips, when he brings the lower half of his body in combination with how strong he is and how sturdy he is, he's really, really good. I do really like him. There are the guys that you haven't watched or you didn't grade that I have ahead of him, but I really do like Salyer quite a bit.
Yeah, and he's obviously checks that Georgia box that Brandon Staley seems to like. I don't know if that's going to translate to the offensive line as much as it does defense, but I think Salyer would be a a good 4th round, 3rd round pick for them if they do kind of need a guard there as opposed to a tackle.
Yeah. Okay. I am up. So my number 6, I didn't know what to do with this particular person. I graded them and ranked them. I will change this. Ed Ingram, I'm aware of all, the general issues surrounding the whole thing. I just put him in there because I wasn't sure where to move him because of that.
Sure.
Obviously, there's issues there. Number 5, I have Cole Strange from Chattanooga. Number 4, I have Marquise Hayes from Oklahoma. Okay, Marquise
Talk about your
Hayes
guy.
gave me so much life watching film. Like this guy, the first I'm watching him against Baylor. There are a few guys that I really just want to I want to spend time 45 minutes screenshotting or screen recording and downloading their film. And Hayes from like the first quarter, I'm like, oh, I have to, show more plays of this guy. I have to watch more of this guy. He is so much fun to watch. There are half a dozen plays a game, 10 plays a game when he's throwing someone to the ground. This is a through the whistle guy, tone setter, mean human being. I think much less so an asshole than Trevor Penning. I think this guy is certainly more of just I'm having fun bullying you, but in like a yay, we're all on the football field sort of way. This guy is a problem as a puller. This guy loves to knock guys over. But then you see all this, the bully mentality, how aggressive he is, how many knockdowns he has per game. And then, like some of my favorite guys in this group, all of a sudden he's like got a pretty decent mirror and he's got independent hand usage. There's variation to it. And he's a guy that also in pass protection is looking to help guys. And he'll move all over the line of scrimmage to try to go help guys, whether it's his tackle, his center, whatever. He's going to go out and help guys and knock them over with a force. He is so much fun to watch. He's Brandon Thorne's number 4 interior offensive lineman, and I totally get it. There are obviously some issues. He's a guy who plays top heavy, sort of as an upright guy. Again, like I said, he doesn't really bring that lower half with him sometimes. I don't want to say he's too aggressive, but I guess he could be. And then he's going to be limited by his athletic ceiling. He's just not a crazy athletic tester, and he doesn't really look like it. He pulls well, but he's not going to be, you get a screen and you run down the field, very athletic guy. He just doesn't really check that box, but he's going to be a good starter in this league, and someone's really going to love him. I believe Jordan Reed had him going in the 3rd round to the Bills. I think that would be so much fun for the Bills. He's a ton of fun to watch, and I didn't know who he was because the Draft Network had him at like 351, and I didn't put him on the composite rankings. I didn't think to look at him. If I didn't know Brandon Thorne had even liked him, I would never have known who he was. And he's one of my favorite guys. He's going to be one of my guys when we do that episode. He's so much fun to watch. Just a total blast.
Alex, you're muted again.
Oh, bad timing. Marquise Hayes is in my top 6 as well, from 6 to 4. So I will not talk about him, but from 6 to 4, I do have Luke Fortner at number 6. I have number 5. I have Jamari Salier. And at number 4, I actually do have Marquise Hayes as well. So yeah, no, I'll talk about Luke Fortner. This guy is a really good athlete. I don't expect that to say that like a lot when it comes to, offensive linemen. But there's a play, just to give you a little bit of an intro to him, where Wandale Robinson is just running through a bunch of Florida secondary people, and he's running all the way to the end zone. And I'm like, who's this big white guy that's just running stride for stride with him? And it's Luke Fortner. And so, yeah, he just was able to keep up with him at his speed. And I love how he charges down the field like that. And that shows in his game, too. He's able, I think, to get to the second level pretty easily. I think the thing that is probably, I don't know, when we talk about interior offensive linemen, and it'll become more apparent when we talk about our top 3s, is how do you value a guy who's only a center, a guy who can play center, guard, and tackle, right? But, in that Linderbaum vein, I think he's just a guy that's kind of like a lock to play 5 to 10 years in the league. I think he has really good functional strength, really nasty blocker as well, and shows the ability to consistently get to the second level, which is not always true with center prospects, especially center prospects that look like Luke Fortner. Not that I'm trying to necessarily insinuate anything there, but also did really well at the combine as well. Showed a lot on the bench press. And I think that he is going to be a guy that, unlike Tyler Linderbaum, I actually think could kind of have that center guard flexibility. What will knock him down for me is that I think sometimes he looks a little bit late when it comes to the pass game more so than the run game. That I totally get why, people wouldn't have him this high. But I think all of his issues are kind of correctable at the next level. So when you're just looking at like these freak athletes who are going to do good at the next level, he's one of them for me. And I could just watch that play with Dolly Robinson all day.
Yeah, it's really interesting kind of how trends in the NFL kind of work their way down. And I think this year's center class is really indicative of that because we're seeing, such an emphasis on the wide zone offense, that Travis Kelce has been kind of, the godfather of the, wide zone center along with Alex Mack over the last few years. And now we're seeing all of these guys pop up, Tyler Linderbaum and Fortnor and Cam Jurgens and Cole Strange, who are just like, elite athletes at that position where, 10 years ago, we just weren't really seeing that. We were just seeing teams go, hey, you're a good guard and you're short. Like, let's kick you into center. Now there's like a verified, bona fide center pipeline that's kind of happening. And as a former center myself, I have to say it does get me a little excited to kind of see these players pop up every once in a while. So again, Chargers don't really need a center that badly. So I didn't really study the ones outside of the top, but from watching Kentucky offensive line in passing while studying Darren Kennard, I will say Fortner has some legitimate, pop to him. And, I think people will be surprised if they pop on the Kentucky Georgia tape to see how he handled Devontae Wyatt and Jordan Davis. Of course, they had their wins at certain points, but Fortner's game against Kentucky, against Georgia, man, was good stuff. It was good, top-notch game tape for a guy who I think he is probably a center-only prospect, but man, he's a good player for sure.
Does Luke Fortner inspire you to put the pads on and get back out there?
Luke, not so much. Cole Strange, however, man, I love Cole Strange.
We'll get to that
so much. Cole Strange, he didn't make my top 3, but man, he's so fun and he's just so old school. He has the vertical bar on his face mask that is just fantastic. And I think he probably could play guard a little bit more than some of these other players, but ideally with his athleticism, with his kind of, tenacity, I think you are looking at a tone setter at center who I think, could provide some value. And I actually have Cole Strange and Tyler Linderbaum graded really closely. So Tyler Linderbaum is number 3 for me, kind of transitioning here. And then number 2, I have Kenyon Green. And then number 1 is Zion Johnson. So I've been talking about Zion Johnson specifically to the Chargers for quite a while. So I'll mention him here. I love Zion Johnson, man. And I've tweeted about him a bunch. He's got an elite athletic profile for the guard position and for the center position. If a team that wants to, kind of draft him to be a just interior 3 player, I think it fits great there. It really has a fascinating story in general. The man was a former golfer in high school and actually started his career at Davidson. And now he's going to be the first guard taken off the board. Like, it's just a crazy story to me that you just never hear. Like, imagine, looking at Colin Morikawa and then, like 3 years down the road, man is training to be a guard in the NFL. So just a crazy story to me in general, but his film is so good, man. And when I say this, like, Zion Johnson is the guard version of Rashawn Slater. There are no mistakes in his film ever, like ever. And, according to Doug Farrar at Touchdown Wire, literally 0.03 of his blocks last season were missed assignments. 0.03. That means like 1 out of 1,000. So Zion Johnson is just a fantastic player. I think he is a little undersized in terms of his height, but he's got 34-inch arms and he's just got outstanding power and pop to him. He could do all the second level things. He's a fantastic athlete, like I said. So I know a guard doesn't really inspire much in terms of first round picks, man, but I would be absolutely thrilled with Zion Johnson at 17. I think he fits, kind of the Saints background that we've seen a little bit. Doug Farrar compared him to Jari Evans. I've compared him to Cesar Ruiz, who the Saints drafted. So to me, there is potentially some smoke there in terms of what the Chargers could be looking for. I think would be a fantastic left guard, right guard, maybe center of the future. So Zion Johnson to me is clearly the best interior offensive lineman in this class, and I will have a first round grade on him.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. One of those guys, almost like Cole Strange, where everything matches up. RAS score matches up. Where he ranks statistically matches up. You know, he goes to the Senior Bowl. He's a practice player of the week. You watch the film. He's great. I struggled. I looked at the blinking cursor on my screen to try to figure out. I write negatives for everyone when we do this. I want to just put as many things I can think of, and it's like undersized. Can occasionally right, where he, occasionally climbing he can miss, but it's like it feels so nitpicky. I had to think of something, and everything is just so clean with him. He's my number one as well. He's the only guy in this group that I got a first round grade for me. I think he's fantastic. Everything checks a box. Like for me, when the film, the stats, the RAS score, all of that could check a box, you're good.
Yeah, feel the same way.
Oh yeah, I'm next.
I think we'll have the same three for what it's worth.
Yes. Yeah. So I do have Tyler Linderbaum, then Kenyon Green, then Zion Johnson. Tyler Linderbaum feels like Kyle Hamilton to me, sort of.
Yeah.
Which people are not going to like because Kyle Hamilton is still perceived as a top 10 pick. Linderbaum more, maybe like your late teens to 20s. But I expected to see a little bit more refinement, someone who's a little bit better. And I do think Linderbaum's best football is ahead of him. I think there's a lot there to work with. This is a high IQ guy. This is a guy who can get to the second level, no problem. His speed off the line is fantastic. All that sort of stuff. Great. He's number one in our composite rankings. Statistically, he checks out. I wish he had tested, but I think he would test well outside of size.
He did just have his pro day today, by the way.
Oh, well, I hope it went well. But to me, and part of the reason I have like someone like Kenyon Green ahead of him is because you're sure I graded him higher anyway, but he's also, Kenyon Green can play tackle if you need him to. And I thought Kenyon Green's best film was as a tackle at left tackle, one game, but it was awesome. Tyler Linderbaum is going to be a center for his whole career, and that's fine. You need all pro centers. Chargers have a good one, and it really worked out for them.
Yeah.
But he's kind of size issues, there's anchor issues. It's a weight girth thing. Some of it's a leverage thing. There's a grip strength problem. I do see issues with GPS at the second level, someone who overruns his targets. I'm like, this is number one over Zion Johnson. And Zion Johnson, who has better tape and can play more positions. I like him. He's number 3. I have a really good, solid, high second round grade on him, but I just didn't see the guy that I thought was supposed to be the best interior guy. And I thought he was really comfortably number 3 on here. And to be completely honest, given what I saw, I would rather wait till round 2, round 3 to, I'm not saying they're better, but I'd rather take Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, whatever, and wait for someone like Linderbaum later on if I'm a team that needs a center, or wait for someone like Strange, like Fortner, like Juergens, like even Donovan West. Wait a little bit longer down the line and take a more premium position guy now. So I do like him. Same thing like Hamilton, but I just didn't see a guy that I thought was supposed to be like easily the best guy in this class.
Yeah, so I mean, he was listed at I think 295 on Iowa's page. He did check in at 303 today, and some like everything is amplified, right? Like the draft process is 5 months long, so everything gets amplified, and so Linderbaum being undersized becomes like gospel, right? Like it's the only concern, but there are other concerns, and I think. You can be a light center and make things work. Jason Kelsey I think he still weighs like 290 pounds and he's only like 6'2". So you have to make things work around your deficiencies. And that to me is just kind of the issue with Linderbaum. I know he's an elite athlete. I know he's a former wrestler and I know he has a great understanding of leverage. That's all there too. But it's just like the lack of anchor. It's just like you were saying, when you're that small and that great of an athlete, you're going to be asked to do second level things, and his second level technique is just not there. Like athleticism, absolutely there. So there are things he needs to work on. And I, for what it's worth, I think the other parallel with him and Kyle Hamilton is really kind of the depth behind him. Like if I needed a center, I'm not taking Tyler Linderbaum at the end of the first round because, like you said, you can get all these other guys too. And it's the same thing with Kyle Hamilton that we're seeing right now. You know, why would you spend, if you're the Falcons, why would you spend a number 8 overall pick on Kyle Hamilton when you could spend a number 48 pick on, you know, Lewis Seen or Daxton Hill or whoever, you know, Jalen Petrie. So I think there are a lot of parallels there. I do think he is, you know, a little overrated in certain aspects, and it's not just that he's small. There are other technique aspects as well that, you know, kind of paint him. For me, he's a second round player because of the technique issues and because he's a center only prospect.
Yeah, we all have the same exact top 3 because I have Tyler Linderbaum 3, I have Kenyon Green 2, Zion Johnson number 1. Yeah, I mean, I feel the same way about Tyler Linderbaum. I feel like you are getting a great center prospect, like someone that, but you know, compared to Zion Johnson and Kenyon Green, just as these two guys that, you know, potentially can play multiple positions on the offensive line. That's like the versatility for me is what really powered those guys over the top. Like, sure, it would be great if you know, a team that needs a center gets their Corey Linsley, so to speak. But I just think that kind of player, as good as he is, as safe of a bet as he is, probably just isn't as valuable as players that have maybe a higher ceiling. I do think there's a little bit of overthinking that goes on with Linderbaum, where it's like, yeah, like, you know, there are definitely size issues. But at the same time, the numbers kind of do speak for themselves. I think he's had 737 pass blocking snaps over the last 2 seasons, 5 QB hurries, 4 QB hits, and 1 sack in that time. Of course, the stats aren't everything, and you want to look at the film as well. But I do think, you know, when you do watch the film, that, you know, it's not like he's giving up a ton of pressures or anything, or you know, losing reps bad, like Tyler talked about just with guards earlier. And so I think the way the rest of the line kind of like follows him as well, I think is very nice to watch on film whenever you do see him play. So I think he's going to be a really great center. Obviously, the Chargers have no use for him because we have Corey Linsley, fortunately.
Yeah.
But I get why a team would take him in the first round. But yeah, I do think when you're in that, even in that range the Chargers are in, where they're like 15 to 25, and that's probably when teams start considering a Tyler Linderbaum, I would go with a Garrett Wilson. I would go with a Jameson Williams. I'd go with a cornerback. I'd go with someone that's going to be sort of more high upside for me over the next 10 years, rather than, you know, just kind of filling out my center position, especially depending on how many picks I have in the draft later on. So I think he's going to make a team very happy. He's going to fix their offensive line, fix their center problems, maybe make sure that the Dan Feeneys of the world aren't starting for you. But I do think that he is number 3 for me in comparison to the other 2.
Yeah, I mean, we talked a lot of bad about him, obviously, but he's number 3 for all of us unanimously. Like, he's a really freaking good football player, man. It's just, I think he's also kind of a victim of his draft hype to start, you know, similar to Devin Lloyd in that sense, who, you know, started the draft process as like a surefire top 10 pick. And now they're both probably out of the first round, unfortunately, for those 2 individuals. So, you know, I think if you are a team who needs a center and you take him in the top 10 of the second round, you'll be very, very happy. It's just, you know, we started this whole process and he was going number 10 overall to the Jets, like pretty consistently, or number 14 to the Baltimore Ravens. And that could certainly still happen, man. But I think top 10 of the second round, you'd be very, very happy with that pick. And it's just kind of positional value too. Like Creed Humphrey was a 58th pick or 59th or something like that. And to me, Creed Humphrey is a far superior prospect than Tyler Linderbaum.
Yeah, I'll have to go recheck that one. To me, I almost feel like not opposites, but I see Linderbaum as a guy who can move forward very well. But I see like Humphrey as a guy who can anchor down and just be this gritty trenches player. Listen, Linderbaum is 23rd on my big board right now. I don't think that's going to change all that much. So yeah, we still like him. It's just
the hype, the draft hype.
Yeah, pretty much. You guys want to talk about some guys outside top 10?
Yeah, I will say, wanted to acknowledge really quickly, LA Chargers fan. Thank you for the super chat. We will not be talking about Tua. That is not something we're going to do today or ever, but thank you for the super chat and for the support. Yeah, outside of the top 10, I didn't grade him, but I did watch him obviously while I was watching his teammate a lot. And Donovan West, man, from Arizona State, like I really like him as well. Watching good offensive line play at Arizona State's a little weird, but Donovan West is good, man. I really like him.
Yeah, it's a good one. Snarky comment from me because I saw this and I had to bring it up. You graded Sean Ryan. Do you want to know who Brendan Thorne's pro comp is for Sean Ryan? I'm going to make the chat vomit.
I'm gonna hate this
Senio
one.
Calamete.
Oh shit! I was thinking it was gonna go like the other way, and he was gonna compare him to like somebody really freaking good.
Nope. So take that for what you will, everyone. All our LA fans.
Yeah, Sean Ryan. I have him at number 12 right now. I have let me check this. I have a 4th round grade on him, so it's not terrible, but man, the guy is supposed to be like nasty and physical, and then you just watch him get destroyed by Oregon defensive players and Utah defensive players, and I was not super into Sean Ryan. And there was that one Fox Sports analyst like early on in the process that had the Chargers taking him at 17, and I'm like, bro, what are we watching here?
And we can officially rule out Linderbaum at 17 as well. I think that's that one mock or whatever. No thanks.
Yeah. The mock drafts really just prove who knows who watches the Chargers and who doesn't. And if you take Linderbaum at 17, then I don't think you've ever watched the Chargers, but okay. But yeah, no. I haven't watched Sean Ryan, but him getting compared to Senio Calamete.
We're not going to anymore.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like a really great advertisement. Like, hey, you could watch this movie, but it sucks. Like, sorry, I don't want to watch the movie anymore. The only one for me that just sticks out, given everything we've talked about earlier in the show with him, is Ed Ingram. He's a guy that would probably be in that 7-8 range for me. But obviously with everything on the off the field issues, I don't know how that's going to play out. So that's why I left him outside the top 10. But
yeah, when we were talking about him earlier, everybody was like, "What issues?" Just Google him, and you'll find it really quickly. And
it's worse than stealing a bike.
It is much worse than stealing a bike. That is definitely confirmed. All right. So as we always do, we'll talk about kind of how we see the Chargers, attacking this unit for what it's worth. Chargers, their second string unit needs a lot of work right now, along with the second string in a lot of places. So, I guess my question is here: how strongly do we feel the Chargers need to attack this again? Ode Abuji could certainly be re-signed at any point. And of course, shout out to Tyler's mom for the super chat feature. We always appreciate those. But I think this is a really interesting group because the guards specifically, to me, feel more top heavy than they feel more depth related. I feel better about the offensive tackle depth than I do the guard depth. So, Alex, where you land with how you see the Chargers potentially, adding to this unit in the draft?
It's tough. That a lot of it depends on if they re-sign Ibushi or not. But we do have Brendan Hymas still, who was kind of their late round guy last year. So I mean, they're kind of, I think, waiting to see some development from him. There's been like weird talk about potentially Trey Pipkins being guard. I don't think that's going to happen much at all. But I think in general they have guys that they want to experiment with at guard. I wouldn't be surprised if they went and got another body. Obviously their biggest hole right now, not speaking in starter terms, is that they let Scott Quesenberry walk. So now they do have to find a backup center. That's something that feels like it could be taken in the draft. Not particularly high, but Scott Quesenberry was like a 6th round pick?
Fifth, I think.
Fifth, yeah. So I mean, that's kind of, if they want to take a center in like the 5th or 6th round, I think that would make a lot of sense. And then I think their need for guard is a little bit higher, but I don't think they'll end up taking both. I think they probably take one interior offensive lineman through the draft. And I think it's more than likely a backup center.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, again, it depends on Abuji. To me, I feel like might not be very soon, might not even be before the draft, but I feel like at some point before the season starts, we're going to have Abuji and Hymas as your starter guard, and then your backup swing guard, if you will. So it does come down to right tackle or obviously a backup center. I'd love for them to take someone like a Donovan West. I don't know where he's projected to go, but if it's a day 3 pick and it's a later day 3 pick, go for it. Have not watched a lot of round 6 to 7 centers. Couldn't tell you who's there, but definitely have to find somebody because you can't, like, Corey Lindsey's great, but even he went down last year. Although, was that COVID or an injury?
That was COVID.
No, well, we'll see. But, like, you know, you got to have a backup center. Can't have nobody. So I think at some point on day 3 they'll address that, barring some crazy fall. But if they don't get a bougie and if they take Marquise Hayes, I will buy that jersey. I don't care how ugly it looks on me and how much I don't weigh 200 pounds.
Hey man, offensive line jerseys look good on anyone.
Do they? I don't think they do. Guess we'll find out.
Guess we'll find out. I certainly think that they have to find another center capable player. Obviously, they need a backup there. And like I really like Brendan Hymas, man. I think I was, I don't want to say I was first on that train, but I feel like I was. I think he can be a starting caliber guard. I really do. I think he showed enough in the preseason. I don't know if the Chargers coaching staff feels that way. Like we talked about on Saturday during the Q&A. I think it is certainly possible that he could be kind of a 3-year project that we see very often. So I think the Chargers could stand to upgrade the position, and maybe O'Day comes back, and in that instance, I think they're obviously fine. But the whole right tackle situation, it really kind of is the determining factor here, because if they take Zion Johnson at 17, then we kind of know Matt Filer's kicking over there, and then we'll see kind of what happens. But I feel much better about this guard class early in the draft. So if they do want to upgrade it it's going to have to be with one of their first 2 picks. I do feel like they could find a developmental tackle prospect later on in the draft, as opposed to, if they decide not to take one in the first round. Like I feel okay about their chances of finding a, developmental project at, I don't want to say I.e. Trey Pipkins, because he was a 3rd round pick and he was the biggest of dart throws. But, there's Vidarian Lowe from Illinois. There's obviously Deesh from Arizona State. There's, I forget his name, from South Dakota. Woodlesko.
Oh, yeah. Let's go from North Dakota, and then Volson from North Dakota State.
Okay. So many Dakotas this year. Braxton Jones is another, decent dart throw. So I'm just like obviously so curious. I'm chomping at the bit to figure out how they're going to solve this offensive line, because they got to do something, man. And I like at this point, I'm really talking myself into Zion Johnson being the selection at 17. I really am.
Wouldn't hate that. I would not hate that at all. That is going to be one of the 10 players of the first round grade for me. So I'm all for Zion Johnson. That's a safe pick in my book.
Would be for it too. Not over receiver though.
Depends on the receivers, man.
True.
Okay, which ones would you not take over Zion Johnson then, Alex? Like Sky Moore.
Where's your bar?
Ooh. I would not take Sky Moore over Zion Johnson. That's very hard, but I would I would not do it. I think the cutoff line is after Jameson Williams. I think after that, then I would not take someone over Zion Johnson.
So you would take Zion over Chris Olave?
No, I wouldn't. See, it depends on how you list them out. I wouldn't take him over Wilson, Olave, or Williams. After Williams, then I would take Johnson over whatever receivers left.
Okay. I love that some of my favorite players that'll be there at 17 are not valuable positions for the Chargers. Like, oh, Devin Lloyd, awesome. Nope. Zion Johnson, probably not going to take him, but betting it is.
Man, I feel like Zion's more likely than Devin Lloyd.
Yeah. Yes. At this point, we have Troy Reader, so
yeah. The dream might have been Morgan Moses and Devin Lloyd at some point, but sometimes it doesn't pan out and you're left with Penning and Reader.
Man, imagine if they could have signed Morgan Moses and then you take Zion at 17.
Oh,
you're cooking. Offensive line is cooking at that point.
Scary.
All right, guys. Any final thoughts before we head out for the evening?
I would be remiss if I did not mention that the Chargers did meet with weapon punter Matt Ariza.
Weapon punter.
I don't know. I just came up with that. But he did meet with the Chargers privately. It wasn't a top 30 visit, but it was a private meeting. So Steven, prepare your butthole.
Listen, man, like he's a great punter. I've never been in denial of that. I've just been in the denial of people like take Matt Ariza with the 4th round. It's like, what? What are we doing here? The Chargers have like 0 backups, and we want to take a punter in the 4th round? Come on.
Okay, where's Jalen Verdermeyer supposed to go?
Steven? Oh, I hope undrafted after that piece of shit combine he threw up.
Okay, so let's say he's supposed to go in the 6th round. Matt Ariza or Jalen Verdermeyer?
I'm taking Matt Ariza over a tight end with an RAS score of 1. I'm not an idiot.
Okay, all right, good to know.
There's your bar for Matt Ariza, everybody. Tight end with the lowest RAS score possible.
If you have an RAS score of 1.2, then you will not be selected over Matt Ariza.
Oh man, like to me, we don't know when that workout happened. Obviously, that could have been 3 weeks ago. We don't really know. But the Chargers are doing their homework. I think they worked out another punter as well. So I think they could certainly upgrade the position. Obviously, J.K. Scott is not fantastic. I think he's better than Ty Long, but he's not like great by any means. But it is what it is. We'll see. I strongly doubt they take a punter before the 6th round.
Hope so. We had Maddie on the show, and she said 6th round was the time to take a punter. So I think that's definitive.
Yeah.
There we go.
I accept that as a ruling.
Yeah, it's fine with me.
Any final thoughts, Tyler?
Nope, no final thoughts from me. I hope the Chargers beat writers can figure out some of these top 30 visits, because right now it's Chargers beat writers 0, Matty Schmidt 1. So if they could do a little bit better in that regard, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. Tyler, we got Tyler Dragon and Pro Football Network guys, giving us all the news about the Chargers. So, yeah, that'd be fun.
I'm still laughing. I think the first time we talked about Tyler Dragon on the show, that Stephen wouldn't stop calling him Tyler the Dragon.
I know.
And I was like, wait, is this a bit or is he actually calling him that?
I did think for a while that he was just giving himself like the nickname or something like that. I didn't know that. Like, I've never heard of the last name Dragon before. I thought he was just like, Tyler the Creator, Tyler the Dragon. I thought that was kind of the.
Well, what am I, Steven?
I don't know. What's your favorite animal, I guess?
Oh, I don't know.
Tyler the podcaster.
Yeah. Tyler the Orca.
Tyler the Orca. All right. So, yeah, I think we're all a little bit burnt out from the draft energy and watching so many draft prospects on film. But we're going to do our cornerback episode on Thursday, and then that will be officially 2 weeks out from the draft. So fun times ahead, obviously, and can't thank you guys enough for tuning in today. As Kapil mentioned, Chargers did meet with tight end Amari Rodgers, former quarterback. So I know that's kind of why people were like really confused about that one. But Amari Rodgers, they also met with Greg Dulcich, the tight end from UCLA. I think that broke out today, if I'm not mistaken. So Chargers continue to do their homework, which I think is obviously always important. So that being said, that's going to do it for us today, guys. We'll see you on Thursday for our episode on corners. And then next week, we'll get into kind of our final mock drafts and final draft primers. Should be a whole lot of fun, and can't wait for that. So we'll see you guys then.